What is up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Camper Report. We've got a ton to talk about tonight. Going live, I was supposed to originally do this stream on Sunday, and then I was making my show notes, and basically I got online, was making my show notes. My computer, I had to restart it, and then I forgot to save the document that I was doing the notes on. So that was kind of why I didn't go live on Sunday, but I'm actually kind of glad I didn't because the Tyreek Hill news, he got released yesterday, I believe it was. And so that's one thing we're going to be talking about. Tyreek Hill, actually, we're going to start the show with that and briefly touch on that. And then basically, we're going to be rebuilding the Niners offensive line through the draft and free agency, going through a couple routes that they could go there. We're going to be going through Jalen Hurts or Sam Darnold, who gets their second Super Bowl first. Kind of an interesting discussion. I actually originally got that topic from Rich Eisen. They were doing a this or that game, and I was watching that podcast and thought it was an interesting topic. And then kind of talking Seattle and what they've done to the rest of the NFL and what I think the NFL is going to learn in the coming years, why a lot of the NFL is going to copy Seattle's strategy. So let me know if you guys can hear me okay. And then we're going to get into, let's get into the Tyreek Hill news. He got released yesterday. And obviously, immediately, on the Niners front of or side of things, you're going to have a lot of people saying, well, we should pick up Tyreek Hill. I don't think it's first off prudent of the Niners to hold on really quickly. It's been a while. I am back, although first time in 2 weeks that I've done a live stream. But I have been trying to post a little bit more consistently while in college, just because I love streaming, love the content, and I'm also just trying to build up my resume, my portfolio a little bit more because I am going for some internships that definitely me doing this for so many years definitely has helped me in the interviewing process. But anyway, I digress. Let's get to Tyreek Hill. So a lot of Niners, obviously, first off, I don't think it would be prudent that if the Niners were to even look into this, I think obviously the whole legal situation is definitely something you have to look into. Definitely something you have to take into account when you're talking Tyreek Hill and that whole situation, as well as obviously won't be able to play the beginning of the season, tore his ACL and many different ligaments. It was not a good tear. It was like almost the Brandon. I don't know if it was similar to the Brandon Ayuk injury, but he tore many ligaments in his knee. So definitely not going to be, I don't think going to be the same player at, 31 or whatever he is. So, we can quickly dispel that Tyreek Hill to the Niners thing. I don't even think it's going to be a possibility because if he's really wanting 3 years, $45 million, if he can get that, I don't know what team. There's going to be a team probably willing to pay that, but it shouldn't be the Niners because the Niners could get a way younger and better wide receiver for that money, frankly. So clearly not the Niners, but I did want to discuss kind of the teams that I think that immediately came to mind when I heard this news. And the first team, obviously, I think should be an obvious answer is the Bills. They've been in dire need of a wide receiver for years now. And I think Josh Allen, it's not like even like Tyreek Hill fits their system, although, he would be an insane weapon. Just Josh Allen and Tyreek Hill immediately, if he can stay healthy, that's the best wide receiver that they've brought in there since Stephon Diggs. And when he's at his best, Tyreek Hill is better than Stephon Diggs. So a bunch of people were throwing out the Chiefs, and I think that would be his second option is returning to Kansas City because they are in also desperate need of a wide receiver as well. So both of those teams are top two. But I wouldn't be surprised. He's obviously going to clearly want to go to a team that is going to bring him back to a Super Bowl. And the Bills desperate for a wide receiver, and they have a bunch of needs on their team. 3 years, $45 million. $15 million per year. I mean, that they would. If I were the Bills, I would waste no time paying that and getting him on Josh Allen's side, because he's a guy who late in the year, if he can return even to 80% form, when you have a quarterback, he would be the best quarterback Tyreek Hill has played with since Patrick Mahomes. And so, I mean, I think that would be a no-brainer for the Bills to inquire. On the NFC side, I was trying to think of like teams, like contending teams. I mean, the Packers are definitely one where it's like they don't really have that strong core. They're losing Romeo Dobbs. That could be an interesting team. They're always looking to contend. I'm just trying to think who else on the NFC side, if you guys can think of any other teams. I mean, I was NFC West, definitely not going there. I think of the NFC North, Packers would be my top contender. NFC South, Panthers? No, probably not. I'd say potentially like Buccaneers. I mean, I don't know if there's a ton of teams that it just makes sense to bring in a guy like Tyreek Hill. Just because as soon as you bring him in, your PR staff is going to have to cover up how this was a good move, and that even though with all these legal issues, it's still going to pay off. And it's just like, I don't know if a lot of teams are going to be attracted to that, especially like young up and coming teams that are really trying to build their team, and you bring in a guy like Tyreek Hill. So it's going to have to be like a contender that has a good quarterback that is going somewhere. And even though the Bills, I don't think are even close to Tyreek Hill, or sorry, the Bills are even close to contending. I still think they could definitely sell it to their fan base for picking up a guy like him. So the Rams take a shot at him. I mean, unless Devontae Adams retires or leaves after this year, I don't see why they would. He'd be the third option, and why he would sign there. He'd be the third option. And also, like, he was still under contract with the Dolphins, had a lot of dead cap with the Dolphins. The fact that the Dolphins, the terrible team, I was about to say a bad word, but the terrible team of all terrible teams in the league, felt the need to cut Tyreek Hill, says to you that they don't want him on their team. Legal issues are about to get real. It's a messy situation. So, I kind of feel like I spent a little too long on this topic, but let's answer some questions before we move on. Franchise is in here. He says, what's up? Chargers, Chiefs, Titans. Titans is a good one, actually. I didn't think of them. But honestly, I didn't really do much research into the topic. Is my guess where the cheetah goes. Yeah. Chargers, Chiefs, Titans. Yeah, those are all great places, because, man, the Chargers with him, McConkey, could be an interesting duo. Okay, so moving on, why teams should change their cap strategy. I need to actually edit this topic really quickly because of what the Seahawks did. Hold on, because of what the Seahawks did. So basically, my thing with this is a lot of these mediocre teams, and the Niners are included, and this is why, like, this is really just almost a Niners topic, because the Niners included, they are now paying quarterbacks $55 million per year, and then the Seahawks come along and they're paying Sam Darnold $35 million per year. And guess what? Now they can have a dominant defense where you're seeing Leonard Williams on that team. You're seeing a bunch of guys that you can just hand out money to, hand out checks to, because you're paying $20 million less for a quarterback. And so because the Eagles won the Super Bowl last year with Jalen Hurts making a ton of money, but I mean, they obviously structure contracts really well. But what this is, I mean, teaching you again, it's like, how many times year after year, the team who wins it is either the team with an insane coach. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, but even they're out of it. Like, the Chiefs had Patrick Mahomes making a lot of money for quite a long time, but they were also from year to year restructuring his contract. He wasn't making a full $55 million every year, the couple of years that they won it. The Eagles, I don't even think Jalen Hurts was on his contract deal yet last year when they won it. So they could spend a little bit. The Seahawks this year, Sam Darnold, obviously, like I said, making $35 million. And so it's like you look at the teams who have won the Super Bowl and either, they're having a quarterback who is just all world transcendent and they're drafting really well, or you have a team like the Seahawks who genius general manager, drafting is elite, but then you also have a team that has a cheaper quarterback. And so it's like teams like the Packers, the Niners, the Lions, I'm just thinking of NFC teams like that. It's like you're paying these guys $55 million, and chances are, and you don't have a good enough general manager that's going to be savvy enough in the draft. And I'm actually going to get to the John Lynch USB device not recognized. Yeah, I'm going to unplug my mic here. Hold on. Cool. I'm going to talk about John Lynch and how the Niners really should replace him, but and there are rumors that they will replace him. That will be one of the topics in this show. But yeah, unless you have a savvy enough general manager, and unless you have that can draft well, structure contracts well, pull off insane deals like Howie Roseman did, then you're going to be stuck in mediocrity for a long time. And so I'm going to actually touch onto this more in a couple of topics. Niners are looking for a new GM, it's rumored, and why this matters. So stay tuned for that. This whole topic was kind of a leeway into my next topic, which how long, because after Seattle won the Super Bowl, obviously the whole question, every time a team wins a Super Bowl, the whole question is, how long does this team stay dominant? So I thought it was kind of an interesting exercise to kind of go through their free agents, right? So they have $75.6 million in cap space for next year. Their unrestricted free agents are Kenneth Walker, Rashid Shaheed, Tariq Woolen, Boye Mafe, Josh Jobe, Kobe Bryant. So that's two starting secondary players. That's Josh Jobe is their safety, and then Kobe Bryant, I believe, is their outside corner. And so, those are big losses. Obviously, the immediate one goes to Kenneth Walker. Actually, I'll get to him in just a second, but I don't doubt, let's get to Kenneth Walker now. The big question with them is, do they bring Kenneth Walker back? Obviously, Super Bowl MVP. When they gave him reins to that running game, when Charbonnet was out, you had Kenneth Walker really taking a hold of that whole offense. He was really good. Now, there is the kind of concern that he's going to get injured because he dealt, this was a breakout year for him, but he was never handling a full workload. So it's okay. First off, I'll preface this by saying I guarantee you there's going to be a team this year that is going to be willing to pay Kenneth Walker what he wants. I don't think the Seahawks are going to be willing to pay Kenneth Walker what he wants because they know that if you give him the full workload of a running back, he's probably going to get injured again, and they know they can replace him. I think he's replaceable. Now, it's crazy. I think just if I were the Seahawks, don't get sentimental. Oh, this is our MVP, our Super Bowl MVP. We need to keep him around because he just won the Super Bowl MVP for us. He was really good. Don't get sentimental. You move on from him, in my opinion, because he is going to fetch a bag in free agency, and there's a chance that next year he could be injured again. So I think they move on from him. I'm not really sure who, but they move on with who. But, even running backs in the second round could be really good. You still have Charbonnet, who's going to be back next year. I don't see it. So that's kind of my concern with that's interesting. What are they going to do with Ken Walker? But they have the leeway here because they have 75.6. I'll get to your guys' comments in just one second, but they have 75.6 million in cap space. So if you're the Seahawks, your window is now because you have a dominant defense. You need to replace guys on that secondary level, but nonetheless, you still have a dominant defense largely coming back. You have Sam Darnold making the money he is. You have a great offensive line. You have great weapons. So they are going to be aggressive this offseason. Their picks, they only really have 4, I believe it was. First, second, third, and sixth round pick. Maybe there's one other 4 or 5. So not a ton of picks, but look for them to be aggressive. I would think because JSN was their mainly their passing game this year. I mean, Cooper Kupp, nice compliment piece. I didn't even realize, I don't think he's even a free agent. I thought he was. But if you're looking to move on from Cooper Kupp, Alec Pierce, I mean, he's been mentioned with the Niners too. But I mean, with how much cap space the Seahawks have, get a guy like Alec Pierce, get aggressive in free agency. Cornerback Greg Newsome, I think, I mean, he's a solid 5-year starter. He was with the Browns. I mean, he's been on the Browns defense. He hasn't been great, but he's a solid 5-year starter. So get a guy like Greg Newsome to replace Tariq Woolen. I mean, they're missing actually not even 2 guys on their secondary. They're going to be losing 3 guys on their secondary. Maybe they, re-sign Josh Jobe or they re-sign Kobe Bryant, but I don't think Tariq Woolen is going to probably fetch a bag somewhere else with another team. And I mean, even Greg Newsome, not the greatest, but he's going to look really good in this front 7. You just know that. A sleeper guy for the Seahawks is David Ojabo, former second-round pick from the Ravens. Fits the McDonald prototype. Like, he plays a lot how Boye Mafe did, like that prototype 3-4 defensive end, 2-point stance, speed rusher who, I mean, he's had injury issues, but he's flashed as a Raven. So that's a guy who it's like you get him in this system. He has one good year of healthiness, and he could be like a 10 or 11 sack guy. Former Michigan man. I watched him all the time in college. So, yeah, he fits Seattle's defense really well. I think they don't even have any glaring needs. And so they can they have the cap to replace everyone they're losing and still be aggressive. I mean, they're in a really good situation. I saw on X they were related to Max Crosby, which I don't even know. I think they would definitely benefit from a elite level defensive end. If Max Crosby were to go to the Seahawks, I think it's just over. I think the Niners should just discontinue or leave the league because Crosby with his age and then him on the Seahawks would be crazy. The only concern with them, and I'll bring this up in next topic when I compare Sam Darnold and Jalen Hurts, but the only concern with them is they brought in the 49ers tight end coach, Brian Fleury, to be the new offensive coordinator. And I don't love this hiring. I mean, I'm a Niners fan. I know who he is. He was the 49ers run game coordinator. First off, he doesn't have any experience or a very little experience calling plays. And then also he was the 49ers supposed run game coordinator last year, but their run game was terrible. I mean, it averaged like 3.3 yards per carry. The only reason why, people are like, well, the Niners run game is great. Casuals say that is because we have Christian McCaffrey and we give him 1 million touches per game. But it's like Brian Fleury ran like one of the most basic vanilla run games all year. And so I'm not with the Niners. So I'm not really sure why the Seahawks did that move. It's like you couldn't have promoted somebody in the organization that Kubiak suggested or whatever, or maybe Kubiak did suggest Fleury to be the next Seahawks offensive coordinator. But I thought that hiring is a bit concerning, and maybe he does well, but also like he was the Niners tight ends coach, right? And he got hired in like 2022, and he didn't develop George Kittle. And so I'm like, what the hell? I mean, our tight ends other than George Kittle have been all terrible. Cameron Latu, we drafted him in 2021. Terrible. So he hasn't really developed anyone. It was a weird hiring. And I'm going to bring that up next topic when I compare Sam Darnold and Jalen Hurts. But all right, so let's get to the comments. We're rolling here. I'm feeling good, having a good time. By the way, I swear I just saw you not that long ago. How do you grow a beard that quick? So actually, I'm glad you brought that up. I lost a bet. And yes, I do grow a beard pretty quickly, but I lost a bet. And basically, I am running college. I raced against one of my teammates, and we made a bet that one of us whoever lost this race would buzz our hair, 1,600-meter race, 1 mile, buzz our hair, and grow out our beard for a month. And so I lost the bet, and I lost him. So a little bit of a story background there for why I look like a homeless man. We have to make some tough decisions. Franchise official says we have to make some tough decisions this offseason because we have to pay Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. I forgot you were an Eagles fan. Yeah. I didn't realize that those are both guys that you'll have to pay. Do you move? Well, I guess they're obviously not free agents, so you can obviously keep them. But I'm assuming you probably won't keep both because they're going to both be commanding quite a bit of money. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to get to that in a second. I think Philly, this is just kind of a hot take, but Sirianni, if this coordinator doesn't work, Mannion, Sirianni's out, and I think you get a different head coach. Seattle has a really good young core, and they don't have big names. Yeah. Soon to be big names. Witherspoon, Devon Witherspoon. Crazy. And then who was the guy on their defensive line? Man, he was really pivotal to their Super Bowl run. Why is his name blanking me? Because he is really good. Williams, first name blanking me. JSN, Jahmyr Gibbs, Puka, and Bijan will catch some big contracts this offseason. Is JSN, you think they extend him early? That could be an interesting topic too. Like, do the Seattle Seahawks extend JSN slightly early? Because if they wait, he's going to command way more. But I think right now he could command like top of the market money. So, but yes, I agree. Maybe you were meaning next offseason, because are any of those guys eligible for a extension? All right. So, yeah, you guys, Niners fans, will have to wait slightly longer because this is leading into another Seahawks topic that I had. So what is more likely, and this is I think, personally, my most enjoyable, going to be my most enjoyable I want to get this nameplate out of the screen because it's like covering half my face. But anyway, this is probably going to be my most enjoyable topic to talk about because I need to get a guest on here and kind of debate this, because Jalen Hurts or Sam Darnold, who wins their second ring? Now, I don't think either of them are going to next year, solely because of the fact that Seattle's really good, but do they repeat? That's so hard to do. Like I said earlier, I kind of touched on both of these things earlier. I think it really all depends on what the offensive coordinators for both guys do, because I think, first off, I'll say both guys are in the same tier of quarterback. When everything's going right, when they've got an elite defense, when they've got some player just playing out of his mind on offense, they've got a good offensive line, they're really good. But now both of them have new offensive coordinators. Now, this Eagles, you saw with Kevin Botullo how bad they were and how not great Jalen Hurts played. And honestly, I think at their peak, I would take Jalen Hurts over Sam Darnold, because even Sam Darnold, he had 50% completion rate in the Super Bowl. Basically, Sam Darnold didn't even make a lot of plays or even put up that great stats. The big thing that Sam Darnold did in down the stretch was just not turn the ball over. I think at their peak, Jalen Hurts is better. Now, I think they're both in the same tier as far as like if they have the perfect or a very good situation, then they're going to do well. But I think at their peak, both guys are in perfect situations. I think I'd take Jalen Hurts because of the running aspect, because in the biggest moments, Jalen Hurts has put up better stats than Sam Darnold, and both teams have obviously won Super Bowls with these two quarterbacks. And so I think, it really is going to depend on the coordinators. Both are question marks. You've got Sean Mannion coming over from the Packers, and he was a quarterbacks coach from the Packers, developed Jordan Love. So that's an interesting one. But even like, has he ever had experience calling plays? I'd like to really know that. I'm sure, franchise could let me know or tell me that. But, both guys are kind of interesting, like not proven coordinators or offensive coordinators. Brian Fleury being Sam Darnold, like I said earlier. So this offseason is going to be really interesting, and those are both question marks for both guys. Both are risks. I'm just trying to look more of kind of what I had to say on that with my notes. But like I said, with Hurts, if you can get the biggest thing with him is they just weren't utilizing him enough last year. What was it? I saw a stat and it was like, he did not have nearly the rushing stats that he had last year than he did the year before when they won the Super Bowl. I don't think he averaged 24 yards per game rushing. Maybe that's correct, but like he was just not good. And that was obviously probably due to Kevin Patullo, just not calling up schemed runs. But that's an element that he's better at than Sam Darnold. So the other thing I'll say with kind of both quarterbacks, but even with Sam Darnold, I think is more evident, is if you can get past that Seattle scheme on defense and you can kind of – now, I don't think that's – wasn't doable this last year. No team could do that this last year. No team could get past that Seattle defense and really overcome that. But if you can, and I'm sure as the years go on – more and more teams will get a feel for what McDonald is doing on defense, and then it's going to fall on the shoulders of Darnold to make plays. And I still don't think he's going to be able to do that. And there were times in the playoffs in 2024 when Jalen Hurts was pretty clutch. So like I said, both very dependent on their situations. Both, when they had their best years, had offensive player of the year type players, JSN, Saquon Barkley. That's kind of my whole spiel on those two guys, but I think it's really hard to answer that question, but whoever gets their ring first, let's just say whoever has better stats next year, I think it's going to be Hurts. I'm really trying not to be a Jalen Hurts hater because I do feel like I am a lot of times I am a Jalen Hurts hater, but I'd take Sam, to be honest, as an Eagles fan. Okay, interesting. I didn't even look up a ton of stats on these two guys and really like who, but I want to say Jalen Hurts had the way better statistical season in 2024 than Sam did in 2025. Hurts has balled out on the biggest stage twice. That goes a long way. I love Hurts, but he's regressed from his earlier days as a player that creates a spark to the offense. Not saying he regressed as a QB, but he doesn't have the same spark he had when he was younger. We'll see. I don't know. Kevin Patullo was awful. And the thing is like his rushing stats went down from last year to the year before, but I also just don't think they were scheming many plays for him. They were kind of asking him to be more of a pocket passer, and that's just not how he rolls. And I'll say this before I move on from this topic. I think, like I said before, I teased it, but I said if the coordinator situation doesn't work out for Philly, they're almost more married to Hurts and his contract than they are to Nick Sirianni. So if it doesn't work out this year, then both guys are probably gone. Or just Sirianni is gone, to be completely honest with you. But yeah, Sirianni, I don't think, why in the world is my Siri just randomly going off on my phone? I don't think Sirianni is, if it doesn't work out, he's going to be gone, basically, is what I'm saying. So one last comment before we move on. I also think those tough NFC West teams that are physical mess Jalen Hurts' body up. Interesting. All right, so next topic, 49ers potentially looking for a new GM and why this matters. On the Gold Standard podcast, Rob Guerrera, whatever his name is, was talking to a guy who's pretty plugged into the 49ers organization. I can't remember exactly what position he holds, but he basically said that there has been talks that the Niners, and I mean, I'm not surprised, the Niners would promote Lynch to vice president or president of football operations, because the person who used to hold that position just got promoted to another higher position. So I think that position's open, president of football operations. So you move John Lynch up into that role, and then you would hire a new GM, a guy who, and what us Niners fans would be looking like or would be looking for in a new GM is a guy who can scout and can draft. And I think that's what the Niners would be looking for too, because I will say, like, John Lynch, great face of the organization, really good media man. But I mean, if you look back through the drafts, the reason why, and I'll just get to this spiel right now. My energy saver is on. Let me turn up my brightness. The reason why I would my train of thought. The reason why this would be a good move, obviously, face of the organization, great media man. But yes, the reason why the 49ers are stuck in mediocrity or will be stuck in mediocrity is because clearly they've given out all these contracts that are starting to look really bad because Christian McCaffrey, highest paid running back, great stats this year, but was overused, and his best days are behind him, right? And we're still pretty deep into that contract. We've given out obviously the Brock Purdy contract, Trent Williams contract, George Kittle. Like, we have a bunch of these aging guys who are paid a ton of money, and we haven't been able to draft anyone that has really contributed. Upton Stout was a great draft pick, but Renardo, let's go through even the draft where we drafted Ricky Pearsall. It's like Ricky Pearsall hasn't contributed in any major way. Renardo Green, I thought was good, and then the last game of the year, he was getting chewed out by Kyle Shanahan on the sideline, and he's up and down. Even the famous one that everyone likes to point to is the 2021 draft with Jake Moody and with Cameron Latu, the tight end that busted, and the kicker that was a bust, and then our safety Jair Brown hasn't been great. And then on top of the fact, we got rid of a very young Talanoa Hufanga, who is a young and promising safety who had his career year on the Denver Broncos. And we could have easily brought him back. It was just, there are so many moves, so many draft picks that we've hit on. So go and get a scout from the Seahawks that, the Seahawks poached Kubiak, their offensive coordinator this year. And now the Raiders head coach, Kubiak, off of Clint Kubiak. They poached him off of our staff. They poached now Brian Florio off of our staff. Poach somebody from the Seahawks scouting department, because Schneider knows how to draft and his scouts know how to draft. And so obviously this is a topic that every Niners fan is talking about, but it's a no-brainer. Go get somebody who proven track record, who is learned from the best. From the Rams scouting department, Les Snead has done really good. So in recent years. So yeah, I just think that if you don't make this move, if you don't promote John Lynch, bring in a guy who knows scouting. I saw somebody say bring back Trent Baalke. Absolutely do not do that. But if you don't do this move, you're going to be stuck in mediocrity for a long time. And we might already be, but yeah, we're just becoming this team with an aging core. I'm sure you guys have heard this topic and heard this said, but an aging core who, I mean, if we every year we're going to have these huge cap constraints because we've got a ton of guys making big money. And then so you can't really be aggressive in free agency and you're not drafting well. So this is the draft. This is the offseason to do that. All right. We've got one more topic left. Really quick, some comments. True, once Hurts got paid, they've made him not run as much. Yep. That could be too. I mean, yeah, that big contract. Jalen Hurts not the same rusher he once was. Petition for Ben to be the Niners' new owner. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of other people. Clearly, I mean, I'd have to have a million different degrees, but there's a lot of other people clearly that, I mean, this is stuff that people have been preaching for like the last two off seasons. It's just our owner, Jed York, our CEO, is like, he clearly is. I think he's scared because he owned the team, or he was controlling the team when we had our 2015 and 2016 years, when we were 2-14 and 5-11 and just bottom of the league. And so he's afraid to change anything in fear of pissing off Kyle and pissing off people in the other people in the organization. And he's afraid to mess up, clearly. And he's afraid to go back to that era. But yeah, that's just my opinion. All right, so to me, this is like the biggest topic. I've definitely the library. I'm actually filming this in a library study room right now. It closes in like 20 minutes or 25 minutes. But this topic ain't gonna be that long, so bear with me. But yeah, rebuilding the Niners. So I've kind of been getting, and I've actually found a couple people on YouTube that I've been watching them. I'm like, dang, I really need to get these people on the show to kind of get their insight a little bit on what they think the Niners should do. But so definitely look out for some guests as the draft gets closer around the corner. But I've been doing every show like kind of a segment, and this one's going to be rebuilding the Niners offensive line. So let's kind of get into it. I think the first step is to assume Trent Williams is going to be coming back. There's been no signs that he isn't. So really right now, I think the biggest need for us is finding a guy who, I mean, there's really not going to be many, and maybe I really haven't looked much past the first round at this point. But I think the ideal thing would be trying to really hone in and focus on getting Linderbaum from the Ravens from free agency. Now, that would be my dream scenario. You get Linderbaum to play center, you replace Brendel, and you get a guy who can play guard for a little while, and you can kick him out to tackle once he develops and once Trent Williams retires. But that's, I don't think, going to happen. I said that way you can focus on a transitional, or on getting a transitional guard that can basically kick out to tackle. But that's also, I don't know if that's realistic. Now, number one, I mean, so let's assume Trent comes back. So who are kind of first off, who are the tackles that you could take. Let's actually just add this to the screen. Hold on. Because I like to kind of pull up PFF when I'm doing these segments just because, mainly just because, let me add my face to that actually. Yeah, mainly just because it gives the audience a better feeling of who I'm looking at, who the prospects are realistically available for the 49ers. Because, I mean, for example, you can't say, okay, we could go out and get, Francis Mauigoa, who I think is the top tackle in the draft. There's just no way. You'd have to pay a ton of picks. So it just kind of gives you, and I've been simulating a couple times each day, but let's start with the guy that I think could be in the first round if you were to draft. Now, I don't think the Niners will, but one scenario, if you were to draft a transitional, like a guard who could kick out to tackle. A lot of people have been saying Caden Proctor. Why? I was watching his film today. I was watching some breakdowns. I don't think the Niners go that. If you were to get a transitional guard that could kick out to tackle, Caden Proctor could be a guy, but he's a big guy. First off, I worry that he doesn't fit Kyle Shanahan's scheme. He's a big guy. He's not super mobile. His not good hand placement, needs help with his technique. And then, I mean, Kyle asks his guards to get out in space. He's a guy who's going to have to drop weight and get way more mobile out in space. And so I just don't know if that really fits the Kyle Shanahan system, as well as the fact, like, he's a guy who, if on top of the fact, I don't think he could fit a zone run scheme or an outside zone running game. Like, he's a guy who inside zone, if you're not asking him, if you're kind of just asking him to, stand up from his stance and maul somebody and push somebody back, he has a lot of power. He's a guy who an inside zone running game and running scheme would be perfect for him, because he's just a guy who can just move someone, but he's not going to get out in space and make blocks on the second level unless he drops some weight and develops a little bit. So I don't think in the first round, especially in a year like this where it's desperation for the Niners, I don't think in the first round you get a guy like Caden Proctor because he's the developmental piece, so I don't think could start right away, frankly. And then, the top guy here is Caleb Lomu, but he's got great hands, great technique, but he isn't strong. He's a very lengthy player who needs to add about 15 to 20 pounds to his frame to get stronger, and he's not a guy who can transition to guard for a year. He's a guy who, you look at his tape, he's pretty much at tackle, so he's not a starter either. I think that 100% you can go out in the draft in the third round and try to get somebody who's developmental and you can sit for a while. So Lomu's not a guy that I really like for the Niners either. Monroe Freeling is kind of the same way, tackle from Georgia. He's, again, tall, lengthy, tough guy, played through a lot of injuries this last year, but again, not somebody I think the Niners would go for. So, again, like I said, ideal situation is you get Linderbaum. But if you don't get Linderbaum, and even if you do, here would be my first pick. And I think this is a guy who's going to stand out in the combine. And I can I could actually pull up his scouting report in just a minute. But Connor Lew, guard. Now, he's ranked like in a lot of mock drafts right now. First off, I have watched multiple videos, multiple breakdowns, like on people saying that they would give him a first round grade. Right now, PFF, mocks him middle of the second round. But where we stand in the second round, there's no way we'd be able to get him. He wouldn't make it to our second pick. And he's a guy who, he reads protections really well. He's super smart. He was a 3-year starter, would have been 4-year starter, tore his ACL 7th week into the college football season, but he reads protections really well. There was a play against Georgia where multiple plays, I mean, his big game against Georgia was what he did against Christian Miller. He played really well against Christian Miller, one of the top defensive tackle prospects in this year's draft. And, multiple plays where Georgia sends a linebacker up the middle, reads the blitz, stonewalls the linebacker, no miscommunication. So just a all SEC guy. Coaches, you look at interviews, they say he's a great team player. He's a leader in the locker room. And so he's a typical guy that you would bring in if you were trying to, bring in a stand-up guy. If you were trying to really bring in a guy who's going to up the PR, up the face of the team, put a good face to the team. So, yeah, great leader. And then I've been talking about his characteristics and kind of what he brings as far as smarts-wise. And again, the reason, really quick before I move on, the reason why you want a guy like him and why Kyle would want a guy like Connor Lew is because Kyle, what he asks out of his centers is, okay, you have to be really smart. You have to know my system as well as I do. Like, that's seriously what he asks out of his centers. Why do you think we've held on to Brendel for so long? Brendel isn't necessarily that good, but he just knows Kyle's system top to bottom. And so he's a guy that if you wanted to hang on to Brendel and not get Linderbaum in free agency, then he's a guy who could play guard. Because again, okay, let's look at him physically. He's great at pulling to the second level, really good in outside zone schemes, a pretty powerful dude. I mean, maybe needs to add a little bit more powerful, but really mobile in space. And obviously, like I said, very, 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 very smart as well. But yeah, great at pulling in the outside zone run schemes. So yeah, that would be my pick at 27. Now, I haven't gotten into receivers, but of the offensive line, I wouldn't mind if we got him. Even if there's a chance you could trade down and get him slightly, then sure, go and do it. And he's going to test well at the combine, a very fast guy. Like, I'm looking at his scouting report now, and his 40 time is a 5-second flat, which is in the 93rd percentile. He's a very quick guy. Now, his weight, 300 pounds, it's a little light, but, it's not like centers. There haven't been light centers in the league. So, yeah, love Connor Lew. Emmanuel Pregnon, I don't think he's a first-round guy. And then, okay, so that's kind of the draft side, and I already laid out what we could do with Linderbaum. But, okay, you might be thinking, okay, let's not dress guard through the draft. Say the 49ers draft a receiver first round, they focus elsewhere, edge first round. There is another way you could go, and that way is getting Semuwalu from the Steelers. He's going to command, I don't know, 15 million. Semuwalo. He is, if you look at the free agent guards, he is the second best. I mean, he's going to be one of the top interior offensive linemen in this year's free agency, Semuwalu, from the guard from the Steelers. But I'll put myself on the screen here. My kind of drawback with signing a guard in free agency and even a center in free agency is like, you're going to be overpaying for offensive linemen in free agency. I mean, look what the Packers gave Aaron Banks last year after he left the Niners. They gave him like $17 million per year, and he's not at all worth that. But because like offensive linemen, good ones, don't come in free agency very often, and there's a lot of desperate teams, a lot of times you'll see teams overpay for a guard. And so you could go after a guy like Semawalu from the Steelers, but you're going to be overpaying for him. So why not get the best center in this year's draft, easily could transition to guard with the traits that he has? Why not get that guy who could be a blue chip player for you guys than overpaying for a mid guard? Or paying a lot of money for a center like Linderbaum, but then you'd have to get rid of Brendel, which I don't care. I mean, I would be fine with that. But even if you didn't want to get rid of Brendel, then you could just draft Lou. You put him at guard for a year. Brendel retires. You stick him to center. Like, that's what the Eagles have been doing for so long. Lou is that guy. Look him up. Look him up is all I'm going to say. Elite pass protection technician is the scouting report. Tremendous football IQ, moves like a pulling guard in space with exceptional lateral quickness and balance. I wish I spoke like a scout, because I'm reading this scouting report. I'm like, man, I wish I would have said this when I first introduced him. But next level awareness and processing speed, leverage fighter who consistently gets under taller defenders' pads. Weaknesses, frame limitations. He did get injured this last year, but tore his ACL. He's young. Little bit more improved strength. Who knows how much? In Kyle's system, none of our offensive linemen are strong. So yeah, that would be my guy. Anyway, yeah, that's the rest of my topics. This has honestly been a very, very fun show. But yeah, next week I'm hoping to get a guest on. There's a couple people I have in mind that I need to contact for next week's show. I hope to do another one. So thanks for rocking with me tonight. Obviously we'll be posting these clips on the channel, on the Instagram. So if you haven't already, go and check those out. It's been fun. It's been it's been a fun night talking Niners, talking Seahawks, talking Eagles. We've done it all. All right. Have a good night, everyone.